We're rolling right
Oh, you're
now.
rolling.
We're
Okay,
rolling right
you're
now.
rolling. Okay.
Hi, it's Andy. I'm here with Lisa Del Rey. Lisa is a top-level flight attendant with one of the major airlines of the world, and Lisa's going to walk us through everything it takes to become a top-level flight attendant. If you like the channel, make sure to hit subscribe and the bell so you get the notifications, and we are starting right now.
Let's go. A flight attendant, as you probably know if you've ever been on a plane, it is you're providing a service on board a major airline, or even it could be private airline flight attendants as well. But for me, I work for a major airline, and I've been doing it for a long time. And the job that I do primarily is to be a hostess on board our plane and to provide a service to our passengers who fly with us. But behind the scenes, what we also are responsible for is the safety of all the passengers. And by that I mean their safety if there is an emergency, to get off the airplane safely, and also onboard emergencies such as a fire or health issues. Passengers oftentimes get sick, and we are trained and qualified to take care of a lot of those types of issues that happen. You know, they're not as often, but we are qualified and we are trained to take care of those issues. I grew up with, my father worked for the airline industry, so I grew up with the privilege of being able to travel all over the world, and I loved it. And I did go to college, never really thought I was going to become a flight attendant. I went to school, I studied business. I got a job out of college, and ironically, one of my friends, my dear friends from college, we both decided to become flight attendants, and the plan was to do it for a year or two and then, you know, go on with our careers that we had studied in school. But unfortunately, or fortunately for me, that never happened. But as a kid, I flew all over the world, and I used to bug the flight attendants, and I used to look up to them, and I would think, oh my gosh, I love their uniforms, and I love going in their little galleys, and I love straightening things up and things like that. And I would actually ask them, hey, can I help you? And I was 10, 11, 12 years old. And they would, some of them would be so kind, and they would show me around their galley and the bathrooms. They would actually ask me to clean the bathrooms, if you can believe that. But I did, because I was excited and happy, and I loved the trays and everything, all the little dishes and everything about it. I think now it was in my blood, and I love to travel, and I love being on an airplane, and I love being in an airport. I just love everything that has to do with flying. So some of the big perks of my job as a flight attendant would be, obviously one is traveling. I love to travel. I love to go to new places. There's so many places I still haven't been, but I hope in my lifetime I will get to them. Another big perk is just being a social individual like I am, just being on the airplane and just providing that service to people. I love meeting people. I love talking with people. I like taking care of people. I sometimes envision when I'm going to work that I'm hosting a dinner party at my house, and these are my friends, and how would I want them to be treated at my house? And that's how I want to treat them at my job, and I enjoy that. It doesn't always work out the way I want, but that's how I go to work every day. That's what I like to think about. And just the flexibility of this job. I would honestly say, after doing it for as many years as I have, I've been able to take time off, raise children, just so much flexibility that, you know, it's not a 9-to-5 job, and with that comes a lot of benefits and some good, some bad. But for the most part, I would say the flexibility of just being able to work around a very different schedule than most normal people that work in an office. Things that are not as pleasant about being a flight attendant would be being away from home. You miss things, sometimes that happens. The work schedule, we go to work at all hours of the day and night. A lot of times you will be flying overnight or at night, or very early in the morning. That can be a challenge. It's not for everybody. If you're not used to being alone or being independent or being on your own, it can be a lonely job. Most days it's not, because you have fellow flight attendants you're with, but sometimes you're on your own. I think another big challenge would just sometimes be the individuals we have on our planes. Sometimes there's passengers that are just extremely challenging, and no matter what you do, you may not make them happy, and you just have to learn to accept that sometimes and just keep trying and not to let that discourage you. The general public thinks we simply just provide in-flight service, which is definitely a part of what we do and a great part of what we do. But I think the underlining and the background to that is the training. We are trained in medical, we are trained in fires, we are trained on how to operate every single door and window on that airplane. We are trained on all sorts of aspects of safety. That's where we spend most of our time. We spend 6 to 8 weeks initially training. We go back to a training facility where every single flight attendant every year must go for 2 days of additional training. We practice, we rehearse what to do in an emergency, how to handle, if someone starts choking, or if somebody starts bleeding, or if somebody has a seizure, or if they fall down and hurt themselves. But that's where we spend the most time. It's not in how to serve the drink. That is almost something you really learn on the job. They touch on that in training, but that is something you pick up doing, and that's just where I think you have to have a natural skill to just want to do this job and want to enjoy that part of it. Like I said earlier, just that comes naturally to most of us. An ideal person, I think, for this job would definitely be a people person. If you're not a people person and you don't love people 24/7, this is probably not the career for you. And when I say that, I mean because you have to be able to read people. You have a plane load of people, 100, 200, sometimes 300 on our large planes, and I have to be able to read them. Does this passenger want to be left alone? Does this passenger want to talk? Does this passenger want me to wait on him hand and foot? You have to be able to read people and know what they want, and a lot of it comes from just asking questions and how are you and what are you doing and why are you traveling today, and you get to know them. But you've got to be a people person. You've got to, and I don't know how else to say that without sounding silly, but people person. I think you have to be a person that is on time. This is an industry where you cannot be late. Our schedules change. You may think you're flying to New York one day and you get on the plane and there's weather and you're going to divert and you're going to go to another city. You've got to be a flexible person. You may think you're going out on a one-day trip, but it may turn into a 2-day trip or a 3-day trip. You've got to always be prepared and plan for the unknown. It is constantly changing, constantly changing. There's a lot that goes into it. Okay, someone that would maybe not be too good at this, someone that's not flexible, maybe not enjoy people, doesn't like to make small talk or just talk in general, someone that's not interested in just being kind and generous and helpful. That's just, it's what you do. And you've got small children on the plane, you've got older folks on the plane, you've got young people. You have to be able to accommodate and be there for everyone. If you don't enjoy flying, or if you're afraid of flying, if you get sick on an airplane, probably not a great choice. Team player would be important. We do work as a team. We're on crews of anywhere from 3 to 13 or 14, 15 people on a flight. So you do definitely want to have a lot of crew coordination goes on. You have to be able to a good communicator. Definitely that's a must, is you have to be able to communicate either an emergency to the cockpit or an emergency to a fellow flight attendant, or just get your point across in an emergency on the plane to the passengers. You've got to be able to make your point and have them, follow your lead. Each airline would have their own specific requirements, but I would say For the most part, most of my coworkers are college educated, but you do not have to have a college education. And if you do not have a college education, then they're looking for someone that has work experience, preferably with working with the public. Language, if you speak a foreign language, that's something that they look for when they're hiring flight attendants, and or a lot of previous work experience in the customer service industry. The amount of money a flight attendant makes, I think it depends greatly on the equipment that you work and the type of airline you work for. But I would say that most new hire flight attendants do make a living wage that they can obviously live off of. I would say in the range maybe $25,000 to $30,000. But it can go all the way up to, with seniority, everything in the airline industry is based on seniority, and it can go up to $125,000, $150,000. But that, you got to factor in what type of airplane, all the special training they've got, lead pay, purser pay, speaker pay, galley pay, on top of just your basic pay. But we're basically, we get an hourly rate, and we fly approximately, most flight attendants fly approximately 80 hours a month. That's about an average month for a flight attendant. One of the big perks of my job that I really love, you can go to work and not know anyone you're going to be flying with, and you can have 3, 4, 5 new friends in a few hours. That's just a huge part of what I love and why I think I've done it for as long as I have, because I would miss that. I would miss all the interactions and all the, we call it galley talk. And we have a lot of galley talk. There's a lot of free time on the plane where we just can talk with or without passengers on board, but we have free time. And I think that's one of the fun things. And I love it. It's a great job.